stadium lights, the flippy buzz before halftime. My heart racing like it's 4th and 5 on a Midwest Saturday night.
Welcome back to the latest episode of Mizzou Storytellers. I'm Dave Matter with Mizzou Athletics, joined by
Loretta Jones, also from Mizzou Athletics.
That's right.
I thoroughly enjoyed that welcome.
What?
That was
Why?
very broadcasty.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, when you follow up our guy, our singer, what's his name? Come on. Roman. I was testing you. Roman Alexander.
This is not good.
You got to come strong.
Dave was testing you, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a test.
Of course I was.
Totally
That's
was.
what media members do.
Of course, yes. Just challenging you to see if you knew Roman's name. Anyway, we've got a good guest today.
Yes, I'm very excited about today's guest.
Yeah.
A lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of history, not just with Mizzou, but especially here at Historic Hearns.
Yeah, Historic Hearns, just the city of Columbia. Technically, on the org chart, it's one of my bosses.
I guess technically mine too.
Yes.
But there's like a weird arm that like comes off that is not directly tied, but yes.
Yeah, well, maybe after the interview I can share a story when I found out we were hiring this person. I don't think I want to say it in front of him. I don't
Okay.
want to embarrass him.
Nope.
It's a good story,
He's such a modest guy.
of course.
Yeah.
Which hopefully we see here in this conversation and see where it goes.
I think we will.
Okay, let's just dive right in.
Let's go.
Tiger fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like huli huli chicken, luau pig, and the delectable Dole soft serve. Hawaiian Bros, just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order at hawaiianbros.com.
He's a Tiger, he's a husband, he's a father, he's a Marching Mizzou alum, he's Mizzou's Deputy Director of Athletics and Chief of External Relations Eric Morrison, and he is this week's guest on Mizzou Storytellers. Welcome to Historic Hearns, Eric Morrison.
Historic Hearns, it's great to be back.
I was going to say,
Hey,
yeah, welcome
Loretta.
back.
Appreciate it so much.
As Deputy AD, can you get the word historic plastered in front of the building somewhere?
I can try.
I don't know if it's in
One-
the,
one
in the
of
budget,
them.
but that's what we call it.
That would be a nice addition, probably. A lot of Tiger fans have a lot of history here.
They do.
You-
You've and we'll go over this. You've had a lot of titles in your time at Mizzou. One wish I had when Laird named our deputy ADs, and of course Eric is one, Marcy Girton is the other. Can we have an official like deputizing ceremony? Like you get a badge, like in the Western movies, like I'm deputizing you, Eric Morrison.
I love it.
Deputy AD.
Walk around like a
Yes.
Tiger badge.
Yeah, that would be
That seems solid.
I thought of that this morning coming over here, and I was
We can
like,
get his cell phone in one of those like old man hip things on
Yeah.
his belt, like his
oh,
old belt.
what's the
loop.
old man references?
Easy.
Don't you
Okay.
have one?
I do not. No.
That
No.
badge feels like what you get like for a turnover, right? Like on the sideline, you get the badge.
I will say, Dave always talks about how long my title is. I think I've got a rival here.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one. Now, we've had several guests in here who at one point they had an office on this stretch in Historic Hearns. Eric, did you ever have an office in this area?
Not on the stretch of the hallway, just around the corner. Brenda Kidwell and I shared 393 Hearns Center for maybe 3 years, something like that. Our direct supervisor was Laird Veatch at the time.
Heard of him?
Oh,
He was
yeah.
right across the hall. But yeah, you couldn't. You kind of had to watch when you backed your chair up because you'd back into the person right behind you in the office.
Do you have, and we had Keegan O'Toole on here last week, and this is like home to him, but like, do you have, and you before we went on here, you talked about bringing your son Evan through this area of the Hearns. Like, do you have nostalgic feelings about this building? I mean, does it mean something to you?
100%. There are times when I drive by when I get the feeling like I did when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old coming by the Hearns Center. You know, particularly at night when the lights are on the outside of it.
Yeah.
But coming in here with Evan was cool. It brought back some great memories of just things we did working here, but also coming here. I think the first game I came to was in 1983, or actually 1982 against North Carolina Wolfpack.
Wow.
During John and Steve's last season. And like I remember doing that. I remember coming here in 6th or 7th grade. My dad brought our team here from Quincy, Illinois. We came down and watched Mizzou, Iowa State. So, I mean, there were a lot of those memories. And then there were just memories of working here, of things we took on here, like when we took all the olive green and turned it to black and gold inside Hearns, other than the seats, of course,
Right.
which are still historic. There are a ton of things like that, Dave.
Yeah, it is a place that it's maybe not the most aesthetic building on our campus, but if you have a history here, and Loretta, you certainly have a history
Yeah.
of playing here, there's a fondness that people have for this building, and just because of the memories more than anything else.
It
And we
is,
shared
it's-
we will not share the story we talked
No.
about before on air, but a Coach Cadillac story, and anything involving Coach Cadillac and this building and those days usually bring up really good memories.
You know, and talking about that, and then just Eric and I realizing we were here on the exact same day, like
Yeah.
the day of that story, that I was down here on the field house floor for practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for our family, you know, my wife is a fourth generation Mizzou grad. My nephew is now the fifth generation. My dad got 2 degrees from here. Like it's a Hearns, the sports park, just Mizzou in general is so much about who we are, honestly, in our family. And it was nice to bring Evan around through here. We went all the way to the top of. I still call it D section. I know we changed
Yep.
it to upper deck about 25 years ago.
I
But
just called it the D section
Yeah,
on
that's
Wednesday night.
he was like, "Why was it D?" I don't know. Hey, I had to kind of go through the whole thing with him and why we changed it, and
Right.
it was very nostalgic, very nostalgic.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of what this podcast is all about
Yeah.
sometimes.
So
Good.
yeah, we just like to kind of go chronologically and tell your story. So we already mentioned, you grew up in Quincy, but we had talked recently about how I asked you if you were a Columbia native, and you said you pretty much feel like you are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Loretta. You know, we moved here when my dad started his PhD in the College of Agriculture, and when I was maybe a year and a half old. So I started school here, and then after second grade, we moved back to Quincy for a position he got at a company called Mormon Manufacturing, and so grew up in Quincy. Great place to grow up. I have a brother who's just a little bit younger than I am. Again, Quincy was a great town to grow up because it's long-time families and just and just a lot of tradition there. But then when it came time to come to school, like my dad had his bachelor's degree from U of I, but like Mizzou just felt like home to us because we had been here so much and come to games. And so I came to school here in the fall of '94 and I haven't left. So like I've spent a lot more of my life in Columbia than anywhere else.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I think I knew you were from Quincy, but I forgot it over the years. And we talked about this earlier, but I spent a lot of time up there. My grandma lived there when I was grade school time. So a lot of Made Right burgers.
Let it go. There you
in
go.
my past, and the Quincy Mall, and a couple.
Did you
other
go any high
restaurants.
school, Quincy High School Blue Devil basketball games, Dave?
I don't think so. I don't know if that was usually
Oh,
producer Steve has that in his past. No, but we just went up there a lot for long weekends in Quincy, Illinois. And it's been a long time since I've been there, but yeah, it brings up a lot of memories. Yeah.
It was great. It was 109 miles from essentially campus to my parents' driveway, and like it was close enough that you could get back there very easily. It was far enough away that obviously I kind of had my own life here. I will tell one story on myself that let's make sure my mother doesn't listen, but I came to school here in '94, and then in 2007 my mom and dad moved back here to Columbia. So I had that whole time of like Columbia was my town. I didn't worry about running into them, no matter where I was. And I would occasionally have a bad habit of smoking a cigarette now and again. And about 2 weeks after my parents moved here, I was driving down Nifong and enjoying that bad habit. And my mom passed me going the other way. And I thought, that needs to probably change.
Right.
She has yet to say that she saw. I don't think she saw me, but now she'll know.
I just hear like the Morgan Freeman voiceover in my head, and that was the last time Eric ever smoked a cigarette.
That's right. Unfortunately, that's not correct, Loretta.
What about your experience here at Mizzou? Now, you're our second guest in the last month or so that was a proud member of marching band member. Now, you were
Correct.
in Marching Mizzou. Brent Lewis was not in Marching Mizzou, but
Jackson, Missouri.
I'm sure he
Yes.
probably has some envy.
But he
That
did
he
mention
wasn't.
that was
Yes.
in his interview.
Yes.
was what instrument did he play in band? I asked him if it was like a make or break. Was there an instrument that if he would have said, you would have been like, no dice?
Absolutely not, because we had a lot of work to do in the ticket office and we needed somebody. No, Brent, the story of Brent Lewis starting here is pretty serendipitous in that, like, we had an opening. We weren't making much progress on that opening, and I had oversight of the ticket office at the time, and I was getting a little frustrated by the fact that we had this opening. So we look at the resumes, and here's this kid who had worked 2 years in the president's office at SEMO.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, well, if they asked him back in the president's office, he's probably an okay egg. We ought to probably give this guy an interview, and that worked out almost 20 years later.
Yeah, worked
He's
out well.
still here as an integral part of our external team.
Absolutely. And so you were in Marching Mizzou.
I was.
Played the trumpet.
I did.
Yeah.
If we handed you a trumpet right now, could you play the Mizzou songbook?
Yes.
Why did
Okay,
you not
Steve, get
play
it out.
better?
Get the
Gonna do
trumpet
it.
out.
Yes.
Yeah, that was such a great, I mean, honestly, it was a great experience for me because, we grew up in music. My parents were musically inclined. My grandparents were musically inclined. And I had a great experience at Quincy with our marching band. And, coming here, Marching Mizzou really brought this big university down to a smaller group of people,
Yeah.
right? And at the time, Amy and I, that's my wife Amy and I met in Marching Mizzou, honestly, when we were in band, I think 85% of the band were non-music majors. So it was just people who enjoyed playing, enjoyed going to sporting events, had lots of other things they were interested in. And it was an easy $250 scholarship every semester to be in Marching Mizzou, and then I was able to also be in Mini Mizzou, the basketball band. So, I got to see all the games, go on road trips, spend all that time with people that were not necessarily associated just with music. And
That's so cool.
It was a great experience. And I met my wife out of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the best part.
That's not
There
too
would have, I guess, there would have been one bowl game in that time. Did you go to the Holiday Bowl?
Holiday Bowl in 1997 against Colorado State was
Yeah.
was an awesome trip for our band. We actually ended up, in addition to all the things around the bowl, we went up to Disneyland. We marched in Disneyland, actually marched in the front gate, marched out the back gate, went right back on the bus, and went back down to San Diego. That was
Wow.
a lengthy trip, but we got that experience. And then in 1998, the Insight.com Bowl, I had graduated, but the director at the time asked me to be the PA voice of Marching Mizzou at the bowl game.
Cool.
And I just started here, and so
Yeah.
that was a free trip for Mizzou Athletics for another staff person to be at the bowl game.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, it was great. It was just a great opportunity. In fact, Dr. Amy Knops, who's the current director of Marching Mizzou, marched at the same time as Amy and I.
Oh, really?
So we have a great connection back to the organization now.
That's awesome.
So you finish your undergrad. You never leave. You start here
I
right
did, in
after
fact,
undergrad.
graduate, Loretta. Yes, I did finish. I did finish an undergraduate degree at the University of Missouri. Yes.
Oh, phew, okay, good.
Yep.
Good. And then Bob Brendel hired you.
Bob Brendel hired me again,
Yeah?
very serendipitously. I was working at Knowles on Keene Street.
My husband worked at Knowles in college.
There we go.
That's crazy.
I was working Thursday morning, 6 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon in the grocery. And then the rest of the time I worked at Knowles Liquor. So I was back there, and I came home for lunch one day, and there was a voicemail from Bob. It wasn't voicemail.
I was going to say
answering
voicemail.
machine.
Yes.
Answering
Pardon
You
me.
rewound the tape and listened to it.
Eric, this is Bob Brendel at Mizzou. I know you've applied for some jobs. We haven't gotten back to you. Somebody quit yesterday. Can you come in on Tuesday to interview with Chad Muller and I? And the rest, as they say, is history. It was like essentially this time of year. I think I started about November 7th or 8th or 10th or something like that in 1998.
Yeah.
And what
Wow.
exactly was your role?
Sports information. At that time it was a graduate assistant role. So my sports were wrestling and track and field.
Wow.
I knew nothing about either of those. The aforementioned Brian Smith that was his first season.
Wow. Okay.
We had 30 guys on the roster, and 19 quit during the first season, I think. So I learned about wrestling and was a sports information person, and then had the opportunity to work with Dr. Rick McGuire, who was our track coach, and just had a great experience learning from Rick. So I was doing sports information, helped Bob and Chad with men's basketball and football and all the other sports.
Could you have thought at the time, hey, I get my first job out of college, I'm working with two guys, and you wouldn't have known at this time, who are going to be in the Hall of Fame or their respective Hall of Fames, two actually like legends who are now we speak of them in those terms.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think so, although I did get a sense pretty early on that Rick McGuire was very well respected and connected in the track and field world. The way that other coaches spoke about him and talked to him when they would come visit at meets or when we were at the conference meets, the way other student athletes would come seek him out. I mean, it was obvious that he was something different. And the way our student athletes at Mizzou really connected with him, revered him, came to him with all kinds of things. And Brian Smith, honestly, you could certainly sense a fact of like, okay, this guy is very organized, very intent on what it takes, and he knew. So really fortunate to have connected with him. It was also Coach Stewart's last year.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to, I was a guy who grew up a Mizzou fan, went to Norm Stewart basketball camp in 1990 as a 13-year-old, and then had a chance to help him, and he tried to fire me, as he did many other people in my role in sports information, and so I had a chance to work with Coach Stewart as well.
When you get that job and you're in the athletic department, did you get like a taste and think, okay, this is what I want to do, or were you just at that point, it's a job, you're paying the bills, and you'll figure it out, or did you get hooked early on?
Oh, absolutely, Dave. I think there's a combination of the answer. First of all, like every other college graduate in the history of college graduates, I'd applied for 1 million jobs, right?
Yeah.
And gotten 1 million, you don't have enough experience, but nobody's going to hire you for the experience letter, right?
Right.
And so, the opportunity then to come in here and interview, and Mike Alden had just become our athletic director in July of 1998, and Bob Brendel said, look, our new AD wants to meet everybody we're going to hire. Yeah. So I go into Mike's office here at Hearn Center, sit down on the couch, and he turns to me and says, so what do you want to do for a career? Do you want this chair that I'm sitting in right now? I had no job, right? Of course I said yes, right? And Mike, to his credit, did everything he possibly could, and to this day, including coffee 2 days ago, still continues to do everything he could and can to put me in a position to be successful. But again, because it was my school, Dave, like there was an added, like, this is unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm working at Mizzou. Like, I get to go to games. I get to work with people that I've watched on TV, grew up watching on TV. So I was hooked pretty quickly.
That's great. And so how did the climb get going then? Because you had a lot of roles in the department
you
in
went
your time
from
there.
sports information to the other end of the spectrum with donor relations. You started doing suite operations.
Yeah, that was right place, right time. But it was also, Mike was and is famous for giving people opportunity.
Yeah.
And when and Laird too. I mean, I should give our boss credit because, at the end of the day, he was the person that he and Brenda Kidwell that hired me to run the football suites when we first built them at Memorial Stadium in 2000. The GA position in sports information was ending, right? Those were essentially 2-year max appointments. I didn't want to go anywhere else. And my wife Amy had gotten her master's degree. She was here, and it just sort of fell into place that we now had this new position. And Mike was very intentional about making sure I knew about the job. Hey, we're going to have this job. You should probably think about applying for it. And I did. And Laird and Brenda really helped me get going in the donor world. But running the suites when we first opened them was like, I was like essentially being a hotel general manager, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at one time you're taking care of your highest end clients, and then you're running down, getting paper towels out of a drain someplace, right? It was sort of the whole thing.
I don't think that's changed a whole lot.
It has not. Still might have to do it this next home game.
Right?
Right. What other roles then? Just kind of go through that your first stint at Mizzou that you took on.
Yeah, obviously the suite operations role gave me an entree into donor relations and into fundraising and building relationships, frankly, with people that I'll probably text with sometime later today still, right?
Yeah.
And so that, was a proving ground, frankly. I was maybe 23 years old, 24 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is this was brand new and this was my opportunity. And Mike gave me that, and, I seized it. So that became more of a external operations, sort of external chief of staff kind of thing, where I was working with Brenda on all of our events. I was doing some ticket things. I was doing some fundraising things with Mario Mocha and Laird and Russ Bjork and our staff, Brian Wickstrom, just all those folks we had working here. And then that led to more of like, well, just why don't you run the Tiger Scholarship Fund when we had an opening, and then that led to, well, why don't you take over the external operations when Mario left to be the athletics director at Southern Illinois Carbondale. And, those were all just sort of steps that came along the way, and I was too dumb to say no and just saw it as an opportunity to continue to expand in the business.
But I mean, it worked out for the best. It worked out for the best.
It did.
Now, so what you're doing now is essentially what you were doing when you left in 2007, correct?
It is, just with a lot more knowledge about what's important to be working on and what's not. No, it is in many ways the same type of thing.
And so when you come from the world of finance, which a lot of people would think that's a completely different world than what we have, but with everything happening and the changes coming in college athletics, it's not all that different.
It is not. That's true,
But
Loretta.
what has changed the most since you were here 17 years ago?
Two things. First of all, the undivided unilateral support for athletics throughout the leadership of our campus is what I would say is the number one thing that has grown since I was here last. And secondly would be the increase and breadth of our donor base has grown dramatically in the 17 years in between times here. And that's not to say that people didn't support us from a university leadership perspective. That's not my point. It's more that everyone is on the same page about supporting this endeavor that is Mizzou Athletics.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants. Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, their famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
When you got back, did you feel like you stepped right back in? Is it like riding a bike, or has it taken a while just to transition?
I really laugh, and this is a true story. The very first day I was back here, our very first senior leadership team meeting, August the 5th of 2024, one of the items on the agenda was student-athlete parking at the Matsey building. And I literally stopped the meeting and said, in June of 2007, one of the issues we were dealing with was student-athlete parking at the Matsey. So there's a lot of similars, Dave.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similars.
Yeah.
And frankly, because I lived here that whole 17 years and had affiliation with those who were closely affiliated with Mizzou, I was always sort of aware of what was going on, so I wasn't totally blind when I walked in the door. That said, from a staff perspective, the now famous Brent Lewis and maybe Kevin Hayward, Joanne Sprouse. There's probably a couple others I'm thinking of, or the only staff members.
Dave Bartlett.
Bartlett, that Sandy Matthew, that are still here. So there's been a lot of change from the faces perspective, but not from what the business is about, right? Which is, are we providing the best opportunities we can for student athletes? Are we taking care of our donors and season ticket holders and creating a great fan experience? And are we an asset to the university? Now, those are still 3 underlying principles that are still the same today.
Yeah. And you talked about even, after you left here in 2007, you were still connected with Mizzou Athletics and people associated with Mizzou Athletics, the largest one being John Sunvold. you went to work for Mizzou Hall of Famer John Sunvold. How did that connection happen? Did you know him well when you were here already? How did you make that jump?
Well, first of all, there's certainly a moment of really appreciation for John and what he means to Mizzou and what his family, frankly, means to Mizzou.
Yeah.
And so I knew John because I did talent stats for our television broadcasts when I was a GA in sports information. And so I would sit with John and Fred White or Dave Armstrong or all those folks that worked the Big 12 games, and I would hand them little notes during the broadcast about little things that were happening during the game. And so I got to know John that way. And then in the I got more of the donor side, more of the ticket operation side. Got to know him just in dealing with things that he did in support of us. And so when I felt like I needed to do something different professionally, and we can or can't get into it, doesn't matter.
Sure.
John was really the first person I called for just sort of advice and counsel and to let him know I was thinking about doing something different. And he was very generous to say, well, why don't you come over here? And so had the opportunity to work for John.
That's great.
2 different stints and spend a lot of time with him. I have a lot of appreciation for John.
Were you a John Sunvold fan growing up? Was it kind of a fanboy moment that this is?
I think there's a camp story.
There's a camp story, right? I met John at Norm's camp. He came when he was with the Miami Heat. He came and did a shooting clinic for us on the Hearn Center floor. There's probably 10,000 kids in the state of Missouri with this sort of like literally made every shot while he was talking to us. Like literally made every shot from every spot while he was talking to us about preparation and game mode and getting yourself ready and what's important to you and goal setting. And that included lots of shots that were near impossible for 7th and 8th grade boys at that point. So there certainly was some of that. He signed a pair of shoes for me, which I wish I still had today. But there's definitely some of that, right? But it's in your blood, and you kind of had a connection with him. I did, at least, through that Mizzou connection. And he was very kind when I came back here, to be really supportive of me returning here.
Mm-hmm. When you stepped away from college athletics, what kind of drove you to move in industries, if you will?
It really came down to a line that Amy said to me one day, and that was like, there's nothing wrong with being happy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was still relatively young as an associate AD here. And I knew it didn't feel like I was going to be the husband or father that my dad and my grandfathers had modeled for me to be, because I was frankly letting this place take over. Yeah. And, this is not to be dramatic about it, but, it's just reality. Like, Amy and I were going through some pretty lengthy fertility issues, and I was not present the way I needed to be. Mm-hmm. And I was here, and I was working, and I was driving, and I was really masking all the stuff I was struggling with just working more.
Yeah.
And there just came to a point where, like, again, if any of our spouses, right, where my wife was like, that something not right here. And thankfully, God put it on my heart to listen to her for once, and I did. And, so I made that change, and it was not easy by any means, but I do think it was the right thing to do, and I do think it was a path that, God put me on to make me better for August 5th, 2024 when I came back.
It is amazing how it works out sometimes, and it's not just working out. You were part of that and the choices you made. And you're gonna react to this modestly, but in that time you stepped away from Mizzou Athletics, and I'll say this: like, you became like a pillar of this community. Like,
Absolutely.
You're so involved with so many things and people. If you ever walk around in Columbia or on campus with Eric, it's amazing. He knows everybody, and not in like a conceited way or anything like that. He just knows everybody because you've been so involved, and I have to think that makes you on August 5th, 2024, not necessarily better suited for this role, but
A smoother
leader
transition.
a leader that we need at the time because of all those experiences you had. So it is funny how that all works out that way.
It is. And again, when I listen to my spouse, when Laird presented this opportunity, she came clean with, yeah, I've thought for like the last 10 years, you're probably going back there sometime. So, but you're right, Dave. I think the opportunities we've been afforded make us uniquely suited to be available to Mizzou at this time and to help Mizzou go where we're going to go at this time. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of credit goes to John. A lot of credit goes to Mike Alden. But a lot of credit go to Bill and Nancy and Paige Laurie, who hired me at Providence Bank and asked me to be, in charge of Providence Bank here for them. A lot of credit goes to Kit Stolen, who is our CEO at the bank, that gave me those opportunities to present myself in community and civic initiatives where you build those relationships and you execute for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about Mike. You spent a lot of time with him, and I think the more we move along at Mizzou, I think we should appreciate his longevity here, and of course the accomplishments speak for themselves. But 17 years in this chair, I say it all the time. That's we just went through an election, so it was on my brain. That's 4 presidential terms in the chair. Like he saw it all. A lot happened on his watch. So what did you take away most from that time working with him and knowing him that you maybe not intentionally use today or intentionally use, but has become kind of part of your DNA as an administrator here?
Oh, I think that's a great question, Dave. And again, I would say Mike will increasingly receive his due as we continue to see the way this business is going to evolve, and the work he and Dr. Deaton and others did to present us to be members of the SEC.
Right.
Like we're in a totally different position if we're not members of the SEC in today's business. A couple things from Mike. Nobody is going to outwork him. And that's not about resources, and that's not about, frankly, it's not even about support. It's just about, like, in your gut, you're not going to get outworked. And not for the sake of working, but for the sake of, like, getting the job done. I think he taught that to all of us, right? And we still use that today. We aren't going to be the largest budget. We aren't going to have the prettiest or nicest or whatever that others may have. But we're going to be proud of what we have, and we're going to outwork people in a really efficient way. The second thing with Mike that really transcended into everything that I've had the opportunity to do is you just can't do the job behind your desk. None of these roles you can do just answering the phone, which, by the way, I don't even have on my desk anymore, right?
Mine rang the other day. I'm like, who even has this number?
I have it transferred to my cell phone.
Mike just was all about, you've got to be out. We can't just invite people to come to Columbia, Missouri. We got to go see them wherever they are. I know if he listens, I don't know if he listens or not, like, one of the things I know Mike Alden is very proud of, he visited all 114 counties in the state of Missouri during his time as athletic director. And that took a long time, and it was very intentional. But he was really proud of that because we are the University of Missouri, and that's all 114 counties. So just those kind of things. I think also from Mike was, just knowing who you are and who you aren't, professionally and personally. Picked up a lot of things from him there.
Absolutely. Okay, you've talked about Amy a lot. Tell us a little bit more about Amy, and tell us a little about Evan. And if you're around Mizzou Athletics, a great thing is families are integrated. It's encouraged that we integrate our families into everything. I mean, my kids will be at the basketball game tonight, and I'm sure Evan will be there. And tell us about your family, the Morrisons, that are now back part of the Mizzou family.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you asking, Dave, because that's an important part of why I'm back here was that, Amy and Evan, understood what the commitment was we were making to come back here and work in this business. So Amy and I met in Marching Mizzou. She is from Huntsville, Missouri, went to West Rand High School, which is about 7 miles west of Moberly, for those of you who may not have been to Huntsville before. Her dad or her family has farmed in that area for a long time. Her dad and his wife, Mary Ruth, still live up there. He farms and sells Pioneer seed corn, and that's kind of what my family's background was, so we had a real connection there. We were friends for a long time. Again, in Marching Mizzou, started dating in my last year. I like to tell her second to last year. She did get 2 degrees. I barely got 1. So, but we, just have loved being here together and having Columbia as our home. Our son Evan is 12. He's a 7th grader at Christian Fellowship, where Amy teaches 2 hours a morning. She has 2 degrees from the College of Education, and so she taught in Hallsville. She taught in Moberly. Wow. And now teaches at Christian Fellowship. And then we have lots of family around here. Yeah. My mom, certainly I mentioned Aubrey and Mary Ruth. Amy's sister Julie and her family live here in town. And then Amy's brother Chuck lives in St. Louis with his family, and his son is actually the 5th generation Mizzou student. And then my brother lives in Kansas City with his family. And I'll shout out Rockhurst Cross Country. Yeah. My nephew Jack is running in the state championships today. Yeah. For Rockhurst. So that's our family here. My dad passed away a few years ago, and so, we're just really glad to be here with my mom and have our family so close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can go for this one.
I think I can.
We got to end on a good story here.
Yeah.
We've heard lots of good stories.
Right. So Dave was telling me about this story that he knew of, and I mistook it for one that just happened because you're apparently a repeat offender.
Defender.
Let's not.
Repeat defender.
Defender. So for those of you that don't know, recently Eric had to stop a potentially dangerous situation on the field during a football game.
Thank you for building it up.
Yes,
Loretta.
and apprehend a rogue fan that was trying to enter the field.
Not trying to.
He did actually, in fact, make it on the field.
In fact, I'm not interrupting.
No, you're good.
The 3 people
who did
that
are all
day
in this room.
who seemed to notice that there was a fan running across the field were the 3 gentlemen in this room, or the 2 gentlemen and myself. Producer Steve Sowers, Eric Morrison, and myself. No one else seemed to notice.
No.
The guy casually strolling across about the 10-yard line.
I've watched that video so many times.
From east to west.
Yes. But, so when I was...
And not a student, by the way.
No, he was a grown man.
I believe he was a fan of the other team.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes a little more sense.
That makes me feel better. But I found out that was not the first time that you have had to interact with a rogue fan during a sporting event. Can you please tell us about the first time?
I'll be glad to. Thank you, Loretta, for bringing this up. I believe it was 2005. Mm-hmm. We played Nebraska here in football, and we were victorious, and the celebration came down onto the field. And Mike Alden was very energetically trying to keep students away from the goalposts and then from the locker room area, if you'll remember the south end where we used to run in those big double doors. And a fan took exception to Mike's exuberance. And I was doing something else, and when I turned, Mike and this individual were sort of locked up, sort of WWE style. And this gentleman was pulling Mike kind of to his back and had his arm up and his fist closed like he was going to punch Mike. And Mike just sort of moved out of his sport coat like a kind of a Bruce Lee kind of thing and left the kid with Mike's sport coat. The kid threw it at Mike, and I just took off after him and had the opportunity to take him down in the end zone, which was a great opportunity.
It was probably, I guess, the best tackle of the evening, probably. I bet it surpassed...
One of our assistant coaches, Brian Jones, who was our running backs coach in the locker room, coined it the best tackle of the day.
Yes.
I was there, and I saw this. I had a pretty good view. This was a Nick Bolton, Jamonte Robinson, James Kinney style hit, and it was I had trouble writing my story because I was like, I could not get that image out of my head.
I can't believe you didn't include that.
Well, I might have. Who knows? It was a long time ago. It was, but then as soon as this incident happened a couple of weeks ago, Eric reminded all of us, it's like, not my first rodeo.
Probably too prideful with that because neither one of them were, just what adrenaline does, right? And in retrospect, I probably should have not done the first one. The second one, it was more I couldn't believe someone had just run across the 10-yard line on our football field with nothing happening. I just sort of reacted. So
Yeah. Well, hey, duty calls, and
Yeah.
you've served a lot of roles here.
We like to
and
say in our
that's
office,
one.
and other duties as assigned.
Yes, absolutely.
that's right.
So I think
It's
you.
down
I
there in
think
the
you.
fine print.
I think you owned that.
Absolutely.
All right, do we have our lightning round
We
ready
do.
to go?
We are ready.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 5 questions that we ask, and we just want your immediate reaction, your immediate answer.
Would I tackle somebody again in the end zone? Yes.
Absolutely. Are there other times besides that one that you have not told us?
That's not.
No.
No, that's not one of the questions, though.
Are you starting?
Yeah, I'll start. Best meal in Columbia. Not necessarily restaurant, just like your favorite meal.
Barbecue smorgasbord in our neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Original. I like that.
I do.
Okay.
I like that.
Favorite Mizzou sports memory?
Aside from tackling the fan at the Nebraska game.
Christian Moody missing 2 free throws at Mizzou Arena.
Yes.
Closely followed by Chase Daniel coming in for an injured Brad Smith in 2005.
Oh, also solid. 2005 was a good year for
Yeah, it
you.
was. Yeah. Best concert you've ever attended?
Wasn't that mine?
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry.
That's
Okay,
okay.
well,
Well,
you
you've already
argue.
asked.
You can get the
Yeah.
next one.
Billy Joel, Elton John, Busch Stadium.
Ooh, that is solid. Okay.
Closely followed by Chris Stapleton in Mizzou Arena.
Oh, that was good. I was there for that.
Favorite Mike Alden quote?
Favorite Mike Alden
Or
quote?
an Aldenism. Something
Yeah,
that
an
sticks in your head,
Aldenism.
like a truism from.
When we were doing things that Mike was involved in hands-on as he always was, he would say, is DeLoss Dodds doing this at Texas? Which was sort of his way of saying, why am I doing this? You guys should be doing this.
That's good. Don't tell Laird. Hopefully Laird didn't hear that because we
Oh,
might
he
hear
heard it many times.
No, hopefully
fully aware.
Laird. Hopefully
Probably.
Laird listens to our podcast.
Well, of course he does.
Yes.
Of course he does. All right. If you could meet, I like this question. This is Loretta's.
That's
if you
why
could
I
meet,
wrote it, and I thought
if you
I was
could
gonna get
meet
to read it.
one Mizzou legend that you haven't already, dead or alive, who would it be?
Pass. Go to the next one.
That's
That's
it. That's,
it.
that's
That's the
number
fifth
5. Come on.
One Mizzou legend that I haven't met, dead or alive. I guess I'd have to say Don Faurot.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That's a good one.
I had the opportunity to meet a lot of them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that I know them all well, but certainly Coach Faurot would be one just to get his concept of what he thought Mizzou could be and where we are now. And
Yeah.
I think he'd be
After
interested
100
in
years.
knowing what we're about to do to the stadium that bears his name on the field.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
That'd be a fun conversation.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Final tradition here. You've got to put you have to put your photo up. Now I went and you almost caught me in the copy room this morning making these.
Okay.
I had to hide them. So we found and producer Steve, you'll appreciate this. We found a wide variety of photos of you on the internet that you get to choose from. You get this one in a suit, this one in a suit, or this one in a suit.
It's like the same photo in
You
front
have
of
a
3
wide
different
collection
backgrounds.
of corporate
lot of
headshots.
suits.
Corporate
I
headshots.
thought you'd find the one from the media guide from 2000 or
I
2001.
I looked and could not. I looked up the Savitar your 4 years at Mizzou.
I was not in the 70s.
I know. I did searches and didn't find them.
You could have found my mother on Facebook. I probably got lots of great photos from
Yeah.
this endeavor, Dave.
Not to say
Well-
we haven't done that for others.
We have. We like Brent Lewis.
Brent Lewis's is
was a Facebook sleuth job.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's it. So, hey, Eric, we really appreciate this.
Yes,
this
thank
was
you so
fun.
much.
Love going down memory lane, and you've got great stories to tell. And yeah, this was a lot of fun, and it's been since August 5th, 2024. Our department has really benefited from your experience, your leadership, your personality, everything. It's been great.
Thank you both for having me. I would say that my best Mizzou memory is yet to happen.
Oh,
I like that.
I like that.
I like that. That's great. Great note to end on.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Shelter Insurance. Ranked number 1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
Man, he has a lot of good
What
stories.
a guy.
What a guy.
Yes. What a guy.
E.
He,
Morrison.
Just a real stand-up
All time.
guy.
Now, when I initially asked him to do this, he's like, I've got a lot of stories. I don't know if we can share them all. Because he was, when you're in college athletics in one department for a long time, which he was, but he was very gracious with his time and his storytelling.
And he's one of those guys that just kind of quiet in the background, and he's just observing and listening and watching. And I think he does. He just files away all those stories.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to share this when he was here, but back in July, I'm at the Jefferson City Airport hangar,
Okay.
and I'm with Coach Drinkwitz, Brady Cook, Luther Burden. We're getting ready to go to Dallas for SEC Media Days. My phone, we were on a little bit of a weather delay, so it was very tense. I get a phone call from Laird, and he says, Dave, I need to start working on the press release. We're hiring a deputy AD, and I think you know him. So I'm like, he pauses for like dramatic effect for me to like think, oh gosh, who are we hiring? And he tells me it's going to be Eric Morrison. And I did like the, yes, like because I know Eric for a really long time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. He'd be great for our department. I kept the secret. I did not tell my fellow passengers, Coach Drink and Brady and Luther. Not that they would know who that is,
No.
but no, I was really pumped.
But you put it perfectly too. He knows everyone.
He does.
We've had some special guests in the last couple of weeks in the department, and we talked about other duties as assigned, and one of them was helping to get restaurant reservations during some of the busiest times in Columbia. And I would go to Eric and say, hey, do you know anybody at these 4 restaurants? And he said, yeah, hold on. And he just would real quick give a call to every single owner of those restaurants.
Yeah.
And he's like, yep, we got you. They're good. Tell them they can go at this time. How many
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, it's incredible, and everybody likes Eric.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to know everybody, but it's a good thing when you're very popular and well liked, and so many different pockets of Columbia too. Obviously, the business community, banking community, where he's specialized in for a long time, but across the scene here at Mizzou too, and it's so great to have that kind of institutional knowledge that he has here at Mizzou, but also just the leadership and the experience that he has. So it's been really, really fun to work with him. And
I mean, how can you
in
not
this
like him?
capacity?
He's just a nice guy.
Absolutely. He's a perfect fit for what we needed at the time, and that's why I was really excited then, and still am. And then getting to spend some time with him here, it even really reinforces that. And I'm serious about the deputizing thing. We need to do that.
I would love to do that.
Maybe we need to reenact that moment.
Because I would love to sing Eric and Marcy Girton.
Get their deputy badges.
Yes, just proper, amazing Marcy Girton.
And you know what else? And this sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. His story, his climb here, it should be inspiring for the folks that work in our department.
Yes.
I mean, I would like to go to talk to Toby Lau in my department, Stratcom, or Eric Mueller. I'm like, hey, our deputy AD had your job.
He didn't even have. He was a grad assistant.
Yeah, he was there full time. But that's what's great about a department like ours, and I think what our leadership now under Laird is similar to in some ways as Mike Alden. There is a growth mindset. You'll have opportunities here if you just do your job to the best of your ability. But get to know people, network, and really think about what you want to do and expand your knowledge and we have staff members who are like that. So it's exciting when you have that example
a
like
success
that.
story.
A success story. It could be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
What else we have? We are in our busiest time of year.
Yes. Crossover season begins
here
today.
Yes.
I mean, it was like a soft launch last week, but this is the official
How
launch.
many home events in a row do we have? Game days in a row?
Well, if you count, so last night, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do the women play next Tuesday?
They do.
6.
Wednesday is there's no event. There's no event next Wednesday.
Now I say 6 days in a row. Like Sunday, it's a women's basketball game and a volleyball game.
Volleyball game.
There's no events next Wednesday, but it's National Signing Day,
Yes.
so there is an event.
So 7, but
yeah.
yes, 6 straight days of Mizzou Athletics sporting events.
Dave,
Which is great.
Who is it National Signing Day for? What sports?
It's everybody except football. And signing day is a little different now because there's no more national letter of intent. That's
Right.
taken out of the equation, but they still sign paperwork. Our prospective student athletes do financial aid agreements, so we'll still announce, those signees for different sports. Maybe not every sport. Some delay it a little bit, but it'll be every sport except football.
I remember doing that in high school, and we would just have a blank piece of paper, and you just sign your name to make it look like you were doing something.
Then go find the fax machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we use fax machines anymore.
We don't have one in our office.
I don't think so.
There used to be one in the Hearn Center down there.
Well, they are.
Well, I mean,
Hearn
there's-
Center.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of
Probably
historic
there's-
equipment.
There's probably
in
typewriters
Hearns.
still in this building.
Those
there's definitely a typewriter in that
Oh,
coffee
yeah.
room.
Bob
what were those
Brendel's
called?
probably
Those,
using it
old,
right
those
now.
Old, the old printers with the perforated edges.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of fun.
We should bring back a typewriter over the arena. I should just.
I was just talking about learning to type on a typewriter the other
Yeah.
day. My dad worked from home. He had his own business, and he would pay me a quarter a piece to use a typewriter to address all of his envelopes that he needed to send his invoices out in. And you use like the correction tape or like the little whiteout guy.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
should do that with your TSF interns.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff I would pay them a quarter to do to just not have
Absolutely.
to do it myself.
What else we have? Anything else?
Um,
We're recording this on Friday before the Oklahoma football game.
Correct. I also need to like a callback though. Like I'm wearing not my first. Let's be real. I'm wearing one of my first puffy vests of the season.
Of the season? It's puffy
Yeah.
vest season?
It's puffy vest season.
You're invested in vest season?
I am invested in student athlete success. Yes.
I do not have a vest today. I might have brought one.
Invest season.
Yeah.
That's
We need more vests around here. More
Should we
Mizzou
get
vests.
I preach because every time I go, people ask for them.
Does Gentile make a Mizzou vest?
They
Oh,
do.
yeah.
They
Oh,
do.
yeah. I became
Okay.
a vest guy because of it.
I'll have to take out a loan to be able to get one of those.
Mizzou great Chase Daniel was here over homecoming.
They got some nice. Yeah,
and he asked me if we had any gold vests, and it brought hurt to my heart to say no, because
no.
there's not a whole lot of gold stuff. Period. As I'm sitting here in a gold quarter zip, but yeah, vests especially, and I asked.
Yeah, it was great to see Chase.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah,
It
he
was awesome.
spent all weekend here, and
Yeah, he and his son were in the parade, and his family was at the game, and
he was out at House Decks. Saw him there.
in the pep rally,
Yeah, and then before the game, and
and then he was inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame.
that's right. Busy weekend for old Chase.
It
And then he's
was a
on his podcast like the next day.
Every day.
Yeah,
Another thing every
I
day.
think he works more now than when he was in the NFL.
Ooh, okay.
Well, no, I just mean like we see him more, and he's very busy. He's very busy. Well, he was busy as a player. He just wasn't in the games
stop.
as much.
Just stop.
Chase is great. He's the best. He's the best. We should have him as a guest.
I would, yes. I bet he would do it.
He's got some stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got some Chase stories.
He's got. I don't have any,
Yeah.
but I would gladly listen to all of them.
Well, yes,
I don't have any.
he would have some good ones. All right, I think we're out of here.
I think we're good. We got.
Who's our next guest? We actually have one lined up.
We do.
I don't think Steve knows this.
No, because we're finalizing the time that we
We'll
can
tell
record
you when you hit stop. We'll tell
Okay,
you.
all
right.
It is a
Well,
blockbuster.
It's a blockbuster.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Is
they
it
all
Josh
are.
Pell, general manager of Mizzou Sports Property. Oh no,
He's in the room.
He's
back
in
of
the
office.
studio today, though.
He is in the room. Could tell some South County stories. How about that? Some Bill Coca stories. Okay, Loretta, everyone has a beautiful story to tell as long as you're willing to listen. This is Mizzou Storytellers.
I'm Loretta Jones.
I'm Dave Matter.
We will talk to you next week.